thank you for tuning into Tahlya the Truth. In this video, I want to talk about stories that we like to tell ourselves in order to keep ourselves small and not live to our fullest potential. So, what do I mean by stories? The first thing that I want to point out is what stories I don't mean. So I don't mean parables or myths or folklore or wisdom passed down through the ages. I don't necessarily mean books on fiction. And I also don't mean stories that you tell to your friends for comedic relief or for a synchronistic event that happened to you that you just wanted to relay to somebody in joy, or connecting to people through empathetic stories that you can relate to them so that they understand you and, you know, that you're connecting on that level. So these are all stories that I'm not talking about. The stories that I am talking about right now and that I want to discuss with you all are the stories that keep repeating over and over in your head, or when you meet somebody and you convey a can't or a but or a victimhood story that keeps you small and keeps you in your ego instead of your oversoul or your highest self. So, stories can be tragic, and especially childhood traumas, you can see them, a pattern of them, reliving the pattern over and over through different scenarios and circumstances throughout your life if you keep letting these stories control your own life. And the reason that this video is so important to me is because I feel like a lot of us get trapped in our own stories and that stuckness and that feeling of lack of control within our lives. And I don't want this to be the case for anybody. And I had to learn myself through my own stories that we are not victims unless we choose to be. And it really is all about perception. So an example of a story that I had was, I am a single parent. And when my child was very young, I felt extremely alone, extremely unsupportive. I, at that point, was undiagnosed with depression, and I didn't know how to handle some of the situations very well. I didn't know how to handle my thoughts. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. And so I would go down into the depths and really get deep into the dark, shadowy areas and not know how to get out of those areas. And for me, I remember a lot of nights crying with my child, and it was undiagnosed postpartum. And I really felt alone and unsupported, like I had said. So I don't go around telling a lot of people about this because my whole programming is that I need to be strong woman, and I can handle this myself. But deep down, I was feeling very scared and full of fear and full of unknowing and being fearful of that unknowing. And slowly but surely, realizing that I had a child to raise and that I didn't even know myself very well, I started diving into understanding myself more, understanding my emotions more, understanding my thoughts more, and really wanting that change and growth for myself, for the betterment of myself, and also to be able to show my child that it is available to him as well, And through my experience, I shifted my perception from a perception of lack and loneliness to a proactive way of looking at my life. And how I did this was I really took on the vibration of gratitude. What did I have in my life? And I did learn that my mother and my stepdad were supporting me through this process. They were letting me live at their house. So grateful for that. I went out and I found a spiritual center that I really enjoyed in a community, and they had childcare, so I got to have a little bit more of my own time to really figure out who I am, as well as the county that I lived in at the time had a getting out of poverty program called the Circles program, and it helped people in poverty get back on their feet. And with these three things of gratitude and feeling supported within communities and really being proactive, I actually became aware of stepping out of that depression and loneliness that I had felt before. And so I had to shift my perception and let go of my victimhood story. Now, I'm totally not going to say that I never felt like a victim again. Obviously, there are times when everybody kind of gets that little bit of loneliness or that little bit of hurt coming up. But now I know how to manage my emotions, and I don't play the victim anymore. I don't say I'm a single mom and that makes me kind of small, and some people express, like I was doing it inwardly and not necessarily expressing it to a lot of people, but some people like to are extroverts and they like to express it in different ways, and they like to tell people about that. And by doing so, it creates a pattern of lack in their thought process. So I really want you guys to understand that you can choose your own thoughts, and you're welcome to choose lack, but I wouldn't really recommend it. It doesn't really serve. And if you want to grow and learn throughout this life, it is so much easier to be able to shift just gradually. And I mean, start with a gratitude journal, start with a process of really understanding yourself, your own needs, your own desires, your own wants, the different parts of you, the different contradictions, and start working with that in order to eventually transmute and transform these dark, shadowy emotions into a brighter way of looking at the world, a brighter way of seeing things, and being a light that shines within this world instead of being somebody that feels torn down. And I want to just let you know that this is a vibrational universe, and there is absolutely no way that you can be in victimhood and be in gratitude at the same time. Those vibrations don't mix at all. So therefore, if you can hold a state of gratitude for something, if you have a roof over your head, if you have food to eat, if you have clean water, any of these things, then you cannot actually hold that vibration of being a victim. So start with small things and then work your way up. Gratitude is such a powerful transformational tool, because eventually gratitude will then get you to a space of empowerment within yourself. And of course, feeling supported and finding a community is an amazing thing. And when you open up and become vulnerable with yourself and with your emotions, and then have the power to even speak that to others that might hear that, It's an amazing gift. So now that I have shared my experience of one of my victimhood stories, I would like to allow you to go deep with me. I'm going to ask some questions, and I want you to get a piece of something to write with and a piece of paper, and just allow yourself to get soft. Allow yourself to get vulnerable. There is a lot of power in vulnerability. It's like water on the rock. Slowly but surely, it smooths the rock. So get soft and vulnerable. Take in a deep breath. And when I ask these questions, I want you to just allow the answers to kind of float up from you instead of trying to grasp for answers. So clear your mental palette, okay? And I'm going to start asking the first question. The first question is, when you are feeling alone, what thoughts go through your head? Notice the ones especially that start repeating themselves. Because thoughts and words can be very powerful when they repeat themselves. And when words repeated are happening in your thought or when you speak to somebody, it shows you what your belief system is. So think about that. The second question is, when you feel sad and depressed, what do you generally do? So, when you feel sad and depressed, do you place blame? Do you become passive aggressive? Do you push those emotions down? Or we like to say bulldoze those emotions? Do you look for attention or love from somebody else without actually conveying your true emotions? Do you look to control others in any form? Remember, these questions are just for you. Nobody else needs to see them. So I want you to be as honest as possible with all of these questions. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, when you get to know somebody for the first time and you're starting to open up to them, what stories do you tell about your past? What stories do you tell from your childhood? Do you notice a pattern or a repetition in maybe telling the same stories to different people? And just take a moment and write down whatever comes up. The fourth question is, do you listen to your inner child? And what I mean by inner child is the voice inside your head that it might be very small, but it is usually in your heart space. In fact, it is in your heart space, in your heart center, in your heart chakra, whatever you want to call it. So if you can drop down and access your heart space, that's where your inner child resides. And your inner child needs attention. It needs something usually. So if you're feeling a vibrational lack of something, then drop into your heart and ask your inner child what it truly needs. If you get an answer, or when you get an answer, I should say, then what you can do for your inner child is let your adult self, visualize your adult self, or feel your adult self coming into your heart space and holding your inner child. What is it saying it needs? Does it want to go on the swings? Does it need a hug? Normally it just needs a lot of love. So if you can connect with your inner child, this is the work. This is how you heal emotions. This is how you are able to heal your past and let it go, and not let those stories claim who you are, so you can no longer play small. So those are the questions that I wanted to entreat you to ask yourself at any time, and I'll put them in the description box as well. That way you can go over them later. I also wanted to let you know to be very aware of certain words that come into your vocabulary. There are 3 words that I want you to be very aware of, maybe during the next week or the next 2 weeks, or however long you can do this practice, however long you feel comfortable doing this practice. And the 3 words are can't, should, and but. Now these 3 words, can't, should, and but, are extremely limiting words. And unfortunately, they hold us back from our true selves. Now, there's a caveat here, because if you're working on healthy boundaries, if you're working on your boundaries and trying to get healthy boundaries, sometimes can't, but are good words for giving yourself space for your healthy boundaries. A lot of times when you tell stories, you tend to say, or we tend to say, I can't do that. And that's usually because of a limiting belief that you had, that maybe one of your role models told you, oh, you're not good at that. Or somebody that you, really inspired to be didn't really have that in their vibration. And so therefore you were like, oh, well, that's not for me either. I can't do that. Or maybe your parent or guardian said you should be doing this. Like, you should write Christmas cards every single year to all your family and friends. You know, all of the shoulds. I want you to start questioning all of the shoulds and recognizing when you're saying can't. And I want you to add a can't yet. I want you to add a yet to the can't. And that's the starting point. That's where you can go, because can't yet means that there's a little room and possibility for a can eventually. And the but is usually some kind of excuse like, oh, I would love to, but. And I want to say that the buts are usually about fear of change, about fear of intimacy. There's so many different fears that arise with the buts. So recognize that as well, and see if that's a limitation for you that maybe you can somehow get over, and ask yourself, why am I saying but? What would be so bad about doing whatever it is you're going to do, or the situation at hand? So all of these words, just kind of throwing them out there, and like I said, the more that you get to know yourself, the easier it becomes for you to be able to manage your own thoughts, and then also manage the words and the reactions. And eventually you get to the point where there is really not many things that you can react to. Instead, you have a peace, an inner peace and stillness within you that always resides, and so therefore emanates throughout. And so even with the hard situations, just kind of having that observant perspective of, oh, that's funny, life is trying to teach me something right now. Like, oh, I just got into a car accident. Okay, well, life is trying to teach me something right now. Or, oh, I just lost my job. What is the universe trying to tell me right now? Maybe that wasn't the job for me. All of these changes that are happening right now in this time period are for your benefit in order to allow you to grow in your life. So just, if you, again, change your perspective from that victimhood into an empowerment perspective, and that gratitude right in between. So be grateful for the things that you have, and then you can empower yourself and understand, like, okay, well, the universe is trying to teach me a lesson. How can I grow from this? How can I be bigger? How can I be the highest version of myself at this time? So compassionate communication with yourself is also very vital. And what I mean by compassionate communication is, don't beat yourself up over things. I know it's very hard, especially in this world of shoulds and do's and have to always be 100% of the time. Really try to have compassion for yourself. Once you start having compassion for yourself, that's also going to overflow into having compassion for others, because there's going to be that empathy of understanding somebody else's story and wanting to see them in their highest potential as well. But we do need to let go of these victimhood stories, because they do not serve us. We need to start recognizing our own limiting patterns so that we can overcome them and be the best version of ourselves. So past stories don't have to define us unless we choose to let them. I also want to tell you, do not wait for somebody to save you. Please do not wait for somebody to save you. We only have this beautiful moment right now. So I need you to be your own hero. Be your hero. Be your own hero on this beautiful journey of your life. Okay? Be proactive. Embrace gratitude and love. Recognize your emotions. Heal through compassion. And become your own savior. Become your own savior. Become your own hero on this journey. And now I'm going to leave you with an affirmation, and I'll put that in the description below as well. So the affirmation is, I will no longer play the victim. I will no longer be a slave to my fears and insecurities. I let go of old stories that keep me small. I take my power back by choosing to take responsibility for all of the actions in my life. I now create the life that I choose. I am worthy of my highest potential. And so it is. Namaste, lovelies. Have a wonderful, wonderful life.